Ladies and gentlemen, hello again, and welcome back to Don't Worry About the Government. My name is Chris Novembrino. On today's program, actually, give me 1 second. I want to do this because I had to roll up the gain here a little bit. I'm gonna do this one more time.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, hello again, and welcome back to Don't Worry About the Government. My name is Chris Novembrino. Joining me on today's program to discuss just a little bit more. We're not going to spend the whole episode on it. I promised myself, in my heart of hearts, we would not spend the whole episode on it. We're going to talk a little bit more about Robinhood and what is happening on the stock market and Wall Street bets and Moderna, Starbucks, all these things. And then later, what Sean's really here to talk about, what Sean probably knows a little bit better about versus the stock market.
Like almost nothing versus
versus quite a lot. Yeah, maybe he wrote a doctoral thesis on it more than me. I needed to even it out. I needed something where I knew more than you on for a change.
You got me on Robinhood, man.
And then we can move back. Then we can move back into your realm of expertise and my realm of amateur expertise, which is politics. We're going to talk about Joe Manchin in our multi-partite, years-long running conversation about Joe Manchin. Probably talk a little bit about the Capitol Riots, since you and I haven't even got a chance to talk about that.
I was going to say, as often as I'm on here, being on here once a month, it used to be like, well, that's enough time to have some conversation about some new stuff that's happened. But now it's like a year's worth of material happens within a month. So it's like I haven't been on the show in 10 years compared to how much stuff has happened between here and now.
I feel like the Capitol Riots, and we'll get into that more when we talk about them. I feel like the Capitol Riots have really been this weird reset point. An inflection moment where I think things could have went one way. I think the media narrative wanted to move away from Trump and act like that was all a bad dream. And the Capitol riots have made it impossible for us to just go, well, that never happened. It was too traumatizing. It would be too unhealthy for us, societally speaking, to pretend that it didn't just happen. And it's impossible to, because you see the barbed wire and the fencing around the Capitol. There's all these signs that no, it was not a bad dream. This was not just like a bad tab of acid. This really happened. And it happened less than a month ago, literally 3 weeks and a day ago as we're taping this, which is pretty crazy.
It's crazy what I think, it does, I think, have a long-term impact on what our political outcomes are going to be over the next 4 years. Just the fact that it happened 2 weeks before, we get a change of president anyway, the fact that the event itself is inconsequential in terms of the direct political, we don't get a president or dictator Trump after this. We don't get really anything other than a lot of arrests. But what we do get is this problem that the Republican Party has been trying very hard not to have to voice into existence. The gap between what they want to talk about and what everyone else is talking about for a long time has been substantial. And this blew it out to here, and now it's very difficult to be a Republican without constantly being asked which side you're taking. So whatever timeline we had for this kind of crumbling or inner civil war that was coming within the Republican Party, this just hastened it, and it made it that much worse for them.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about there. First, I want to get into Robinhood. So I am going to pop on the video feed here a little bit of share screen functionality. So I'm going to bump in.
We really are in the 21st century these days.
I know, right? Well, I've been enjoying adding the video component to Don't Worry here a little bit. I think that people who have been taking advantage of the video feed are getting something out of it. Try to make sure that it still translates okay over on the podcast side, though, for our main feed. But I got an email today, or message from Robinhood, who is one of my two brokers, that there have been changes going on due to ongoing market volatility. Sean, you might have heard about this GameStop thing.
GameStop thing? What are you talking about, Chris?
Well, I did a full episode out of the last time, so I'm not going to recap the entire framing of the issue. But GameStop prompted Robinhood yesterday to freeze all buying of stocks like GameStop AMC and other preferred stocks by Wall Street Bets, or stocks that had been mentioned on Wall Street Bets. They got a lot of pushback on that overnight. And Vlad, I forget his last name, he went on and did a really disastrous media appearance with Chris Cuomo, where Chris Cuomo made him look like an absolute clown. And Robinhood realized that their position was untenable, that it was very obviously a form of market manipulation to create stocks where the only thing you could do with the stock is sell it. No one could buy it. Your only options were hold the stock or sell the stock. That is obviously a form of market manipulation. And Robinhood was already starting to face the murmurs of class action lawsuits going into last night, and they realized that they needed to modulate their position. They've come up with a number of different reasons as to why they did this in the first place. I don't want to get into that. Suffice it to say, I have my doubts, especially given these new standards. Well, what they changed here today, as you can see on the screen, but I'll explain to everyone else, is they announced that indeed buying would be back for all of these stocks. You can buy stocks again. You can buy exactly one share of these stocks. So literally doing the absolute minimum to say that the functionality of buying was available on these stocks. So you could sell an unlimited amount of them. If you had 100 shares of GameStop and you wanted to sell 100 shares, you could sell it and go through pronto. If you wanted to buy GameStop today, you could buy exactly one share of GameStop. And you could only buy 5 options on GameStop at an absolute maximum. And this expanded out to include a number of other Wall Street Bets preferred stocks. Okay, so far, it's kind of shady and weird that, like, yes, they brought back buying, but they didn't really bring back buying, and the way they brought back buying is so lopsided that it's essentially the same sort of market manipulation, only with this ever so slight smoke screen around some of these stocks to say, no, yesterday you couldn't buy them. Today, you can indeed buy a share.
Chris, a clarification here. This list that we're looking at, this list they approved for single share buys, is the basis for the shares being on this list exclusively that Wall Street Bets has made a big deal about these particular ones?
That's where it gets interesting, Sean. So certain stocks, for example, AMC, is a Wall Street Bets style stock. Full disclosure, I hold several shares of AMC right now. Not a ton. I talked about it in the last show. It's $112 worth of AMC that I purchased. So I'm not going to go broke. I'm not going to not make rent because of AMC or anything like that. But I can only buy one share of that. AMD, which you're seeing on the screen, just to put this in, has nothing to do with AMC. AMD stock, I want to say, almost certainly is American Micro Design. I just want to make sure that, and I'm bringing it up on Micro Devices. This has absolutely nothing to do with AMC, and I think it is what most analysts would actually consider to be a good long-term stock. I'm just bringing up an example here right now. Why AMD will outperform Intel. Like, they make semiconductors. They have absolutely nothing to do with movie theaters. But on Robinhood today, you can only buy one share of American Micro Device, which, to that point about that headline, would hurt American Micro Device on the market, because American Micro Device has nothing to do with Wall Street Bets. It's not a company that's going under. There are not a ton of short positions against American Micro Device. There wouldn't be, because many analysts think that it will actually go up in value and outperform Intel this year. But what Robinhood did today is hurt American Micro Device, albeit in the exact short term. Still a meaningful amount. American Micro Device's shares dropped. However, this got extended out to other ones, and this is where it gets interesting. So, GameStop.
Chris, really quickly, just one question. With AMD, this is a graphic card design company. Is this one of Wall Street Bets? Even though, as you say, it's clearly got a long-term trajectory that's different than these other companies. It's not one of the ones that was being exploited like this, but this is probably one of what I've been hearing Wall Street Bets like meme stocks, right? Like they just think it's like an amusing company to get involved with. And I guess I wonder, like, by including that on there, is this like
AMD,
punishment or almost like a threat or something? Because
I'd call it a fat finger stock. So you're looking for AMC and you end up searching for AMD. That's what I really think is going on here. I want to put AMD's stock price. They make semiconducttors, so they're a tangible items thing. They're a multinational.
They're way out.
Yeah. And here's your 5-year outlook on American Micro Devices. Look. This is, again, not financial advice. But, Sean, you're looking at this chart right now. Does this company look healthy?
Looks healthy to me, Chris.
Yeah. So if someone wanted to buy shares of this company that, from all external views, appears healthy, today on Robinhood, you absolutely couldn't. So in the context of this, that actually put them at their 1 month low.
Yep.
I
wonder, like, if I still wonder, like, do I want to go to Wall Street Bets and see if, like, AMD just, like, I know how many weird video game people are on there. I know that that's, like, part of the reason GameStop is one of these meme stocks. Like, part of me still, like, I have to think that, like, they kind of include that in there and, like, do stuff with it because, like, it's another one of the, like, game-related companies that they feel like they have some sort of, like, weird personal connection to. And, like, I guess the thing, I think this is still something really to be concerned about, because it seems to me like if Robinhood is targeting companies on the basis that, like, Wall Street Bets is using this to, like, do what they're doing for these specific targeted things, I see what they're doing here. They're obviously trying to prevent that from happening. But if, like, there's certain stocks on here that, like, it's just on a list of things that Wall Street Bets talks about, like, that seems like that goes beyond trying to solve the problem and more just, like, either A, trying to punish Wall Street Bets, or B, potentially trying to, like, I don't know, like, warn future companies that are like, hey, you want to, like, I don't know, like, go into these, like, chat boards and, like, sort of, like, start talking up your company in an effort to, like, become one of these, like, companies where these people could act as heroes. Like, it just seems like that the fact that it's not a company that's failing, and
to my knowledge, AMD is not a Wall Street Bets company.
AMC, it really isn't. Okay. But I know AMC is one that they've been really pushing hard on.
Yes.
But AMC, like Tesla, for instance.
Well, okay, so all of these stocks, the thing that they all share in common, in addition to being stuff that, like, in our heads sort of makes a millennial mole that you and I used to kind of kick around on back when we were kids, like
yeah.
Talking about some of these companies, I'm like, I went to GameStop with Sean Frieder back in the day.
I'm sure that's true.
Yeah, no, it was at the pavilions back. I'm pretty sure the pavilions had.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, no, like. In addition to that, I don't know if they might have had an AMC there. They did
actually.
I'm did. You're right.
They did.
Yeah,
you're
right. Okay.
Wow. It's a conspiracy. Shit.
So what has been going on, though, is a lot of these hedge funds have been taking short positions against GameStop, AMC, and a number of these companies. In the case of GameStop in particular, why they became such a target, it's not purely because of the meme. The meme makes it stronger, but the premise behind the meme is that there were literally more short shares out of GameStop than there were actual shares of GameStop, which, like, okay, what is that then? And with AMC's almost even a stronger play, because GameStop, you might say, is fundamentally doomed as a company. AMC is a movie theater company. I think people are going to want to see movies in 10 years. Like, if we're looking at the 10-year outlook, GameStop looks pretty rocky. The 10-year outlook for movies and people still wanting to watch film in a cinema, I think, is pretty darn good. AMC stock is down right now, but even in this spike, this spike that we're in right now is only half of its 5-year highs. So what's happening with AMC is much more within the realm of normal behavior, if you will.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to highlight this because here's where it gets really interesting. So you want to talk about, like, what are Wall Street bet stocks and what aren't. You know what's definitely not a Wall Street bet stock? Because I've read a lot of Wall Street bets. And in full disclosure, I have a couple of shares of this. Actually, like a little bit more than a couple. It's like a fractional amount. So Moderna, Moderna is not chatter on Wall Street Bets. And it's really interesting that Robinhood chose to target Moderna today on a day where we just so happen to find out that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is only 66% effective. And another competitor, Novavax, has a vaccine that is 89% effective, but less so against the South African variant. If you read that news today and you were a retail investor like Sean or I, and you wanted to go and buy some Moderna, you couldn't. Which is a darn shame because Moderna went up 7% today on this news. So Robinhood effectively boxed out a lot of retail, as in the little guy investors today, with these rollouts. And you'll notice here, you can't even argue that this is a fat finger stock. They just threw Moderna on this list. It's not GME, it's not AMC, it's not BB, it's not BBB, it's not Trivago. I don't know their call signs. It's none of those. It is Moderna. Also note, Novavax is on this list. So if you wanted to buy some Novavax based on the Johnson & Johnson news, you can't even do that. But then you might ask, well, gee, Chris, what about Johnson & Johnson? Well, you'll notice that there's this hole where J&J should be. So if you wanted to all day today on this bad news, you could buy Johnson & Johnson. And like to this point, and why I think something else is going on here, Johnson & Johnson has also been trading at heavy volume all this week. This is a blue chipper stock that's gone up $10 a share from 160 to 170, back down, but it's been volatile. It's been getting traded all week. And yet somehow it didn't end up on this list like Moderna and Novavax. So I'll tell you, Sean, what I'm trying to get at here that I'm suspicious about is that I believe that there are these long positions and these short positions that these hedge funds have. And these hedge funds, as you're aware of this week, have been getting cleaned out on their short positions. That's the real issue. So what they've been having to do to cover some of those short positions is pull out from their long positions. But if you restrict long position companies from being accessible to retail, what you're effectively giving is the big guy the opportunity to get back in at the low prices on some of these stocks. You're essentially giving them the chance to get their money back.
I see your angle now.
Yeah,
I see where you're going. All right.
There's a lot of speculation around Robinhood and their relationship with Citadel Capital. So, I'm not a professional. I don't have all the balance sheets and I don't have phone records and stuff on my hands here. But I know enough about markets and I know enough about some of these stocks to tell you that, like, I don't know. You know, it sure would be nice to get a nice convenient markdown on American Micro Devices. I don't have a position in them, but if I was thinking about getting a position in American Micro Devices at any point during the last month here, boy, today's a great day. How many shares can I buy? Exactly one.
But you'll love that one more than any of all the other ones that you could have possibly gotten.
I will cherish it like a jewel.
So what do you think that, like, I mean, this is obviously what we're looking at right now is sort of like the ground view. We're going through this, we're living this right now. I mean, as a Robinhood user, what do you expect, you're going to see over the next month in terms of the SEC's involvement, in terms of what Robinhood continues to do, in terms of if Wall Street Bets plays a counter move? I mean, what do you see getting involved in this?
Well, I think that this is going to create serious market volatility over the next month here, because I do think the SEC is going to get involved with what Robinhood did yesterday and what they did today. Yesterday, they had a class action lawsuit on their hands. I think today, when people start putting together what's really going on here, and I'm not that smart. I do okay on the market, but I didn't go to college for it. I talked to some people who are professionals on this, and I read the news a lot, and that's essentially what I'm working on here, and I can put together what's going on here. I assume smarter people than me with lawyers are going to put this together, and the SEC is going to get involved. And like I will say, when it comes to this, I've already written the Fort Worth chapter of the SEC about this. Because I want them to look into it. So I imagine other people will be doing this as well. So you're going to have that component. I think that's going to create volatility. With Robinhood, I suspect people are going to be seriously exploring shutting down their Robinhood accounts and transferring out money from Robinhood over the next month.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
I can't rationalize on my own front putting any more money into Robinhood at this point. I have holdings in Robinhood. I don't want to just close out the holdings to close out the holdings because screw you, Robinhood. In the case of some of these throttled stocks, I'd be playing exactly into the hands of the big guys. If I was like, oh, I'm mad. I already mentioned Moderna. I'm mad. I'm going to close out my Moderna positions. Hedge funds be like, cool.
Right, exactly.
Thanks, guy. Yeah, no, so I'm not just going to close out my shares. And, yes, I could restart them simultaneously, close it. But, that's a lot of work for me. I'm not going to do that. But I'm also not going to put any more money into Robinhood. Robinhood wants to go public at some point.
I was going to say, do you see Robinhood surviving this or having to change their long-term trajectory? Because, I would imagine for a lot of people, the effect that's happening right now, there's going to be a two-pronged effect. And like one you talk about, which is existing customers are going to get nervous and start pulling out. The other effect seems like there's probably a lot of people right now that just heard the name Robinhood for the first time. They're not super involved in investment and I'm guessing somewhere in Robinhood in terms of their long-term trajectory, in order to continue being profitable and expand into new markets, they're probably convincing some group of investors that the next step is to really take this to the level of an E-Trade, where it's this household name where absolutely everyone knows it, and it's getting mom and pop and everyone involved in this. That option is probably off the table now.
Yes.
Because now, just for the average person, Robinhood equals chaos, possibly something illegal, the market's fluctuating up and down. It's just going to be associated with a host of crap. And I can't imagine what that's going to do to their ability to borrow more capital.
No, I think that they've completely destroyed their IPO. I agree with you on this because they wanted to be the broker of the people. You mentioned E-Trade. Robinhood essentially displaced the E-Trade model by going commission free. I will say this in their defense. They're pariah. I'm not Robinhood's great. Obviously, they're not. I've been just talking about how I think they're manipulating the market. But one thing they did that was an obvious positive, is remove commissions from buying and selling, because the commissions thing, which you're now seeing people want to bring back, commissions made popular access to the market more or less impossible. It was essentially putting ankle weights on your legs and asking you to go and run. Because the big guys, they got ankle weights on, but it's not really jamming them up. For you, it is, because you want to buy. I'll just name $100 stock. Let's say Starbucks, $100 stock. I think they're about 100. Starbucks, and the commission's $7 for that transaction. I need to go in and buy really $500 worth of Starbucks shares to distribute out that $7 commission thing so that I'm not getting whomped on it. And even then, I need 2% growth in order to just recoup my commission losses up front. It's you buy the stock and you're taking a little bit of a haircut up front to the brokerage firm. Robinhood got rid of that. And they made that industry standard, which is cool. So I'm slightly optimistic in this sense. I think that the demand is only growing for more democratic access to the market because there are people right of center. You're seeing with the Barstool Sports guy who's no angel, and Elon Musk who is no angel, and a lot of these people who are no angels. But they really believe in this free market stuff, and to a certain extent, I'm, I guess, a bit of a rube. And I also believe in this idea that, if you want to talk about laborers owning a company, you make laborers who are shareholders own the company. They have a stake in how the company goes. Shareholders have meetings, they vote on company decisions, they share in the company's profits. Ultimately, when we're talking about a profit sharing model, you're talking about making people shareholders of the profit. I think that increased investment in the market, increased investiture in the market through stock options from your companies that you work for, and through people being able to buy into the market. Ultimately, I believe that that is a big piece of the puzzle. It's not the key, but it's a piece of the puzzle of how do we fix income inequality in this society? How do we
Yeah.
make more of us part of the capital class and less of just purely the laborer class? How do we make us more equal? That's how I think we get there. So the reason I'm saying that is I believe between people like me who are libs, and people who are I saw this very funny meme. I'll just show. I can't believe I'm sharing a friggin' meme, Sean. But I will show you this
Oh
meme.
man, what does it come to, Chris?
It has come unfortunately to this. Allow me to share screen. Share screen. Put the darn meme up. Yeah, this is from Lord of the Rings for everyone there. You've got the dwarf going, never thought I'd be tanking hedge funds side by side with the Redditor. And then the elf, who's one of these weird alt-writers, is like, Daddy, Musk is going to take us all to Mars. And the dwarf is like, what the fuck?
I like this meme because it doesn't actually label the dwarf. So like you can really like it's the dwarf is the everyman. You could be any number of communists, whatever, and you could just plop I'm the dwarf in this.
No, it does a fantastic job encapsulating a moment, which is why or like a mood, because it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I know. I've seen people going, oh, see, this is the red brown alliance we've been working for. You know, this is like the left right alliance we've been looking for. Like, no, it's not.
No, it's never that. But well, on that, I mean, and this might transition us into politics.
Yeah, let's do it.
You think that does this moment create any opportunity for? I mean, like the parties are always looking for a way to reframe things in a way that's going to help them with their agenda. And for the Democrats, if you were clever enough. Frankly, if you were young enough, which is a huge problem for the Democrats on this one, you would look at this and see this is an opportunity for framing to try and like, AOC, for instance, I can see taking the ball and already has and running with this about like, like the capitalist class versus the rest of us doesn't have to be this left-right issue. We're all getting fucked in the same way. And like, if we turn this like left-right instead of like bottom-top, like there's actually an opportunity here for getting stuff done over the next few years. Like, again, almost nothing is really going to truly move us, in the next couple of years into a path of getting a ton of stuff done. But like, I look for these little inflection points, like you said, these little moments where like something can really maybe change if it's framed a different way. And it seems like, if it does really unite the weird online libertarian Elon Musk types with the like more let's change society socialisty types, like, I mean, is there an opportunity for the parties to exploit that?
I feel like probably the best opportunity is going to be for the Democrats. I think the progressives probably have the best chance on this. They just have to be careful about the language they get into. So, like I saw Sanders tweet out something like Wall Street is fraud or something like that. And that's the exact sort of language that will lose this crowd.
Totally.
If you're trying to, this will make some people roll their eyes, but like Warren's whole "I'm a capitalist to my bones" thing, which like, guys, I hope we're all smart enough to realize that like she's saying that, but she's sort of just saying that because she like is pretty into regulation and all of that stuff. She's not a free market capitalist. Warren and that kind of rhetoric is closer to where you need to be, but even she's saying casino, and casino is one of those words that needs to be taboo if we're gonna try to score points on this.
This is a really great point. I mean, I think that this is kind of the issue that they face is that I've been seeing the popular response to this kind of falling into two camps. And like one of it has like from the left been this like, this reveals the like fraud, the illusion that is Wall Street. This is exactly why we need to move away from these kinds of institutions. And then, the middle or the right is kind of reacting to this more as a like, this reveals that like the castle is not illegitimate. It's totally legitimate. This is an opportunity for us to storm that castle. Like, this is not a power to be banished. This is a power to be like reclaimed. And like, that's really hard to like get those two, I think, to talk about that in the same way.
Yeah, no, and I think therein lies sort of the lingering Sanders versus Warren progressive rift,
Exactly.
if you will. Like,
Yeah.
as I very much come at this from the philosophy of, in addition to, yes, I do think that investment, not Wall Street bets, but investment is good. I also believe that market activism gives us a unique opportunity to actually go after capital in a way that, the we need to take it to the streets sort of approach never has actually allowed us to. Occupy Wall Street didn't work. I went to Occupy encampments. On Don't Worry About the Government episodes. I went down there. I've taped with those people. I've walked around the block with those people. It didn't do anything. This has hedge funds collapsing, rattled,
Yeah.
making short positions, calling up brokerage firms, getting them to throttle positions and access. This actually rattles Capital's cage and exposes the game that Capital has been playing in a more meaningful way than I think people realize. Like, this is really useful. Market activism, in my opinion, is very useful. People need to participate in it in a responsible way and be aware of what they're doing when they be literate about the market before they participate in activism. I just put that out to the audience again and again and again. Get literate first, get active second. But I think that market activism is super useful. And like, for example, if you're upset that Congress is not doing a good job responding on the coronavirus, one way to maybe rattle some cages is make it clear that you are doing a short push this week because those stimulus checks haven't shown up yet. Like this gives you go after the donor class now. You have a way of pulling out your phone and actually getting into their house, and they hate that. Why do you think they put the fencing around the Capitol?
I think you need a way to keep this sustained for more. I mean, this is going to go on in terms of like the people that pay attention to Robinhood, the people that do like stuff with the SEC, politicians, lawyers, et cetera. I mean, this will be really important to be going on for months. But I think you really need something to maintain if you're going to turn this into any kind of political movement. Like, you really need to maintain the public's interest in this. And I want to go back really quick to one point that you made earlier, which is that to a certain extent, AMC is really a more legitimate target here than GameStop. And I kind of think that would, if I was trying to encourage some political movement here, that would be my pivot point. Like, abandon GameStop as quickly as you possibly can in terms of the narrative here. And, turn this into, the hedge funds are trying to kill our movies. Like, they're actually like, this is like a nefarious attempt to sort of like, they don't give a shit about anything other than them making money. So like them like targeting AMC, shorting them like this is like, they've been going around aggressively killing shit all over the place. This is like one more thing, like, don't take our movies. And like, I know that's not the real game here, but like to the average person that doesn't see this as more than like the news cycle of today, like I just want to find as many ways to cast them as villains that the average person's really respond to. And like, the AMC one, I think there's a real opportunity there.
To the AMC narrative, AMC was able to sell a bunch of their company-held stock during this run-up here, and they're able to avoid bankruptcy. They opened up their runway here for many, many months. So like, it is doing real stuff. And I think, the lesson here, hopefully everyone's learning, is that where we, the people, are getting our strength in this is that there's a lot of us. And when we're like straight up buying long, we are not nearly as vulnerable as people who are buying short. These short guys, they're putting in millions of dollars into those short positions, but it is entirely dependent on us not buying much cheaper long positions. And actually a very common way that brokers cover short positions if they're in trouble is by buying longs, so that they're essentially just trading it back to themselves. But like, I think that there's a real powerful lesson here of we will squeeze the Wall Street class, the donor class. Hey, Cory Booker. Hey, Joe Manchin. Hey, Chris Coons from Delaware. He's like the worst. All you guys go run and go tell Visa, Chris Coons, that we're gonna squeeze them if we don't get this stimulus check passed. I think there's a real opportunity for stuff like that going forward here, done in a good way. What I worry about is, this whole thing like, go and invest in Dogecoin. No, don't go and invest in a mimetic Bitcoin, or any of this other stuff. And to your point, keeping it focused around products that you can at least somewhat justify. BlackBerry has evolved past the phone that Obama used all the time to being a diversified technology company. If they had increased capital, they could at least justify expanding out and doing something with it.
Yeah.
Ditto with AMC. Making sure that they're not entirely ridiculous products. Bed Bath and Beyond. Trivago's probably the one that's pushing it the most. The shitty travel online booking thing. I don't know if you remember the commercials, but I just remember this guy going Trivago at the end.
That's what I remember of it. I mean, I guess they lodged that in my head successfully.
Okay, so we were kind of talking about like this is a form of like digitally storming Wall Street, if you will, but like we had a tangible and much less cool actual storming of the Capitol back on 1/6.
Really? When did that happen?
Literally only 3 weeks ago. It feels.
Oh my God!
It feels like
awful.
6 months ago.
It does. Time is a crazy thing right now.
So. Like, what are your top line thoughts on the Capitol? Obviously, I've kicked it around a little bit here, but I wanted to get that up on the record for the listeners.
I mean, in terms of the actual events of the day, I think it opens enormous questions in terms of like our readiness for these kinds of events. I mean, there's then this kind of attitude about Trump that I think I've really heard, especially in the past, 2 or 3 months ever since the election, of like, just because it's stupid doesn't mean it's not a coup. And, the concern about going forward, what happens the next time that we actually get like, an authoritarian, but they're actually a smart authoritarian that doesn't have like significant personality disorders that prevents them from playing the game the way that it could be played. If a smart person did what happened there, and was responsible for that, that could have been a lot worse. That could have been planned a lot better if you wanted to do more damage with it. So I think it exposes a lot of security concerns for the United States. I think it also exposes, like a lot of people have been talking about, the concern of what percentage of our security forces, of law enforcement, would be willing to go along with or would be compromised in some way by their own political leanings. We've seen, evidence that people were let into the Capitol building by people that were sympathetic, that some of the people that were there, in fact, were off-duty police officers. So it mostly just brings up a lot of security issues to me. The other thing that it does for, what I study, which is, public opinion all the time, seeing the surveys coming out after the Capitol storming and seeing, what that looks like and how partisans feel, I think it's just about, a lot of the stuff Trump has done falls in this category, but it is just about the clearest demonstration I could think of just how completely divorced from the shared reality both sides are at this point, that you regularly have somewhere around 40 to 45% of Republicans saying that like they were okay with what happened at the Capitol building. And of course, that's just like a natural extension of, a significant portion of the Republican Party. I think still a majority believing that there was like something wrong with the elections and that they were rigged. And, I had a friend that made this comment, and I just think this is the right way of thinking about this. And this might, get us into the impeachment aspect of the Capitol storming. But, when you are saying that an election has been stolen, and you say that over and over again, you say that for months, the second half of that, where you actually say, and therefore you should go do this and commit this violence with these people, that second half does not really need to be explicitly stated, because it's just one of those things that as a human being, like the reason why we have a law against yelling fire in a crowded theater is that our reaction to that idea is not that the person who yells fire is going to, like say that, and then a few people might flip out, and that would be really bad. The reason why we don't do it is because we know how people react to incitement, and they respond like by like taking a lot of cues from the group around them and taking a lot of cues based on what they already thought was true. And when you say something like the election's been stolen for 2 straight months, you tell people, come to Washington, D.C., it's going to be wild. You tell people to go to the Capitol building and tell them what you think. There's not a human being alive in the United States that shouldn't know that if the government is being stolen right now, you refresh the blood, the tree of liberty with the blood of patriots. I mean, that's the only valid response to democracy being stolen. So, I mean, to me, it's unambiguously clear that what happened there was insurrection. It's telling people to go commit violence in the name of you not being in power anymore. And regardless of the strategic aspects of impeachment, I think it's really important that at least we demonstrate like this is not something that we will just call politics and let slide by. Like we will at least try to like memorialize this in history somehow.
Yeah, this kind of gets into the people as heuristics component of this for me, which is that I think that if Joe Biden, for whatever reason, had said the election was stolen and you need to go down and storm the Capitol, like the roles are completely reversed, the Republicans would know exactly what the events of 1/6 were. They would have T-shirts that would say 1/6 never forget. They'd have the American flag. They'd be talking about how the Democratic Party has finally been subsumed by like their communist socialist values, their anti-state values, and that they want to overthrow the Constitution. So the reason I'm bringing this up is not as a charge of hypocrisy. It's way deeper than that. We're way past hypocrisy. I don't really care about that. It's the fact that we don't want to see facts for what they are if they conflict with the narrative. Kind of getting back to what you were saying with Trump and how he would say, "Oh, the election was stolen for 2 months." This gets into a wrestling term that I borrowed called kayfabe.
Right.
This broader on-screen narrative of professional wrestling. Trump spins a kayfabe, and the reason why the Republicans can't really decouple from Trump's narrative is because there's no off-ramp from Trump's narrative. Trump never accepted that Joe Biden was legitimately president. And as such, if you're a Trump supporter, you can't ever really accept it either. And even the Republicans, when they tried to accept it, like Mitch McConnell, within days, he had to start walking it back because there is no narrative structure wherein they can ever really accept that they legitimately lost the 2020 election. Because to do so requires challenging not just Marjorie Taylor Greene, not just Lauren Boebert, but really going after Ted Cruz, who is doing this really kind of Weasley thing and making him try to seem normal again, and going after other members of the party who are more normal. There's no off ramp. I think that's been the big thing here. If there was going to be a chance for a break, if they were going to have the opportunity to get away from Trump, 1/6 gave them the moment. As every day goes on, as especially after this vote for impeachment this week here, I don't see any off ramp now. Now that you get the 45 Republican senators saying they shouldn't even have the impeachment trial, they've more or less accepted that Trump's part of their DNA.
Yeah, they have accepted it, but they don't have a plan for it. Like this is someone that's just sweeping the ground that's 1 foot in front of them the entire time. Like there is not a plan here. Their plan is that I hope he doesn't hurt me tomorrow. And I think like for a long time, that's been their only plan, is that we have this weird situation where he has completely stolen all moral, legitimate authority within our party. We are nothing without, the power to us runs through him 100% now. So, in the past, like they haven't been able to figure out how to get out of that problem. And you'd think that by cutting him off from most means of online communication
and even television communication, he's been
television.
He's not even allowed to really go on Fox at this point. Like he has been decoupled, and they can't decouple. He's only going to get stronger from this low water mark.
So this is something that I find interesting is comparing sort of the Nixon impeachment era to the Trump impeachment era. You look at the Nixon impeachment era, and the Republicans have Nixon as an albatross around their neck for like ever since he starts his second term. Basically, it's just Watergate to some extent up until a year and a half in. Finally, it all ends and he has to resign. But for the vast majority of that stretch, the public isn't behind impeachment. The Republican Party is still circling the wagons around him. Really, the only moment that we get this final break where they just like, okay, like we're going to impeach you, like we can't sustain this anymore, is the smoking gun tape that gets released. But without that, and also probably even with the smoking gun tape, because I'll tell you, if there was some kind of Trump smoking gun tape of true significance like that today, they'd still circle the wagons.
There have been three.
There are.
There are three different ones. Let me rattle them off real quickly.
Yeah, let's revisit.
The call with Zelensky, where he makes it very clear he's going to withhold aid unless Zelensky and the Ukrainian government gets him dirt on his election opponent, Joe Biden. You have the phone call to the state of Georgia that was only 2 days prior to the Capitol riots that he should be impeached over and is not impeached over to our detriment. He calls up Georgia and is like, it would be really cool if you could somehow invalidate your election results so as to make this schmaz thing I'm going to do on 1/6 seem even more legitimate. And then you have smoking gun tape number 3, the rally, the trial by combat rally, where he's telling everyone, we're mad as hell. If you don't fight for your country, and he's getting feedback from the crowd that's going to be like storm the Capitol. So he knows what he's hearing. So those are 3 different smoking gun tapes. And to your point, this is the difference. Those 3 discrete and like sort of obviously objectively bad moments, and flip the partisan roles around if you're really kind of unclear on this one. But these 3 obviously objectively bad, damning moments have not been the end of Trumpism in the party.
Yeah, they can't be because, it's a broken record, but it is all of American politics right now. It's polarization. And in the early 1970s, we were a low polarization system. Didn't mean crazy stuff didn't happen. Doesn't mean that, we weren't like doing all sorts of stuff that was wild. But in terms of the conflict being primarily partisan, we did not have that in the early 1970s. And so when you hear a tape of Nixon doing something that's obviously illegal, you as a citizen, you as a politician, know that the writing's on the wall. Like, I'm going to listen to my own, 2 ears that aren't going to lie to me. And there it is. That's the end of it. My party isn't important enough to me to just outwardly reject reality. And, that's no longer the case. So, it's disturbing to me that we're beyond the point where smoking gun tapes really mean anything. And, if we're beyond that point, I don't really know how we come out of this, because there's not going to be that one moment that's going to make the Republican Party just completely say, that's it, we're cutting him and we're taking whatever consequences, and we're going to see them. I don't know exactly what form it's going to take. It's going to depend a lot on, one, whether or not he wants to form a new party, which, like, I'll donate $100 for that. Fine.
Oh yeah, no. I got money for that Patriot Party.
Yeah.
I'm loving this Matt Gaetz versus Liz Cheney thing. It is very Iran-Iraq war from the 1980s. Let them fight.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so
fight.
It depends on if he throws his energy into that, then I really don't know what it's going to look like for them, because they can't even, they don't have the option to use him anymore because they no longer have him. And if he were to in any way try to create his own party, I don't know the Republicans ever win an election at the national level again for this decade.
They lose the presidency over and over again. They will hang on to their safe gerrymandered districts. They'll probably be okay in the Senate. They won't feel that effect. But yeah, no, if he sets up a Patriots party on a presidential level, and even if Ivanka runs against Marco Rubio, I think Marco Rubio's got a real problem on his hands.
He does. He
has a huge problem on his hands. And to your point about, Trump, I was just seeing numbers on him last night. Let me see if I can get these up real quick. That show that he's still kind of the dominant worldview in the party. And this is, in my opinion, what we can reasonably predict to be the low water mark. I'll give you some reasons why. When a president leaves office, they're generally as least popular as they'll ever be. So they tend to only go up in popularity from that. Second of
Yeah.
all, absence does make the heart grow fonder. And especially with Trump, it's been so weird for him to not be around. I think that some people will miss having Trump around. I'm not one of these people, but I imagine that there will be some people who are, missing Trump. But then beyond that, you start to see these numbers about, okay, new University of New Hampshire Survey Center poll. This is of New Hampshire Republicans, but that's important because of the New Hampshire primaries. Should Trump run again in 2024? 47% say yes, 45% say no. 58% of GOPers say that the party should follow Trump's leadership, and 31% say that the party should go in a different direction. If those are what the numbers are right now, I don't see how they decouple. I really don't.
No, I don't either. I mean, it's also it's not often talked about with the idea of the party splitting that would happen with the Republicans versus the Patriot Party if something like that were to happen. There's most of the time when we talk about some sort of like splitting thing, we're talking about someone like Jill Stein rips a couple percentage points off of the Democrat.
That's not what this is going to be.
This is not even a couple percentage points. There could very plausibly be more people that would join the Patriot Party than would stay in the Republican Party. And the idea of the Republican Party actually being the third party even if in a short-term arrangement, I don't think that's
branding
that's not
wise.
sustainable.
That I think is, you want to talk about a thing that will be hard to come back from.
Exactly.
The idea that there was a civil war inside the Republican Party, and the Republican Party lost, at least initially in terms of numbers. Face wise, that would be so damaging. And I'm with you. I get why lefties and progressives get jealous a little bit of like the Trump base's power, because they are just way bigger. Like if all the progressives and the lefties in the country decide, like everyone from me on over, like we're all, you, Sean Frieder, me, we're all breaking away, we still would probably not be able to actually buck establishment Dems. No. It'd be like 40-60. The big
difference there is that in terms of like who's being taken away from the party, we're saying to the Democrats, we're going to take all of our lowest percentage voters and leave right now if you don't do what we want. Whereas with the Trump party, it's literally the opposite. You're taking all of their high value voters, the people that vote like 80-90% in the elections, and it's a donut problem too, because you're taking a lot of the older people that vote in really high rates. You're taking all of the new low education white working class voters that just signed on purely for the Trump stuff. You're taking all that away, which means you've lost the one thing that was refreshing your pool, and you've lost the one thing that was actually keeping you stable. You've got nothing. You've got a weird little donut of businessmen left.
Yeah. No, I have a friend who was anti-Trump, and I think he thinks that his little anti-Trump wing of the party, that to the right of the bulwark, and he thinks the bulwark and a lot of those guys, they lost their way. Still reads National Review, but it's sometimes a little bit squishy for him. But he thinks that there's this sweet spot where we can get him back into the intellectual stuff. And I'm like, dude, there is no intellect. There's intellectual core, but for like the majority of your voters, bro, it's racial animus, it's fear, and this socialist button that is very, very strong that still has a thrall on people.
I wrote a little bit about this recently, but every election, or every major election where a party tries to grab one new group of people and bring them into the party, because usually, unless it's some sort of real big realignment election, you have an opportunity to gain some new group of people. And I think that the story that will be written, political scientists looking back of like what demographic deal essentially did the Republican Party make with Trump? They made a deal on education, and it was a really, really bad deal. It was an awful deal. It was a deal that looked like in the short term, like a really good deal, because again, you need to infuse your base with some new group of voters, because that group is going to go away. They're going to die. They're going to stop voting eventually. And you also need to do it because you're just getting to the numbers in the country. The other side's growing enough that like the old card is not enough anymore. So you have to have this infusion. So they brought in low education, white working class. Just from a purely demographic perspective, I mean, that is just about the most dangerous thing you could double down on in terms of your party, because you look at growth demographics in this country. White people, that's a failing demographic. Like the growth demographics are people of color. You look at, growth in terms of education. There's people, the growth market is people getting degrees, not the people that are not getting them. And so they just keep taking these market shares that are in markets that like, you're taking the collapsing side of the market every single time you get some new group in. And the problem with doubling down on education is now you can't unring that bell. I can tell you this because like I see my students every single day, and I can tell you how liberal my students were on average before Trump versus after Trump. They connect their education now, the vast majority of them, with being in the Democratic Party. And like you've won by appealing to the lower education base. You now have tagged your party. The party is now branded as the white working class lower education base.
You're the dumb party. You're the dumb party.
Which you can't be that in a society where like universities are pumping out more 4-year degree students every single year, and you were already losing those students to begin with. I mean, the Republican Party is going to have no demographic base to really use or to use for voting, to use for donations, to support.
I think where they're really in trouble is the governing side of this. Is that people who are actually legitimately interested in the art of statecraft and learning how to do meaningful things inside of government basically cannot, inside of this anti-intellectual conservatism, really justify a meaningful career in studying statecraft. Who wants to be what is a MAGA city planner? Because like MAGAism doesn't actually have a real idea of like urban development. They just say make the cities great again.
Right.
Like you can't. MAGAism doesn't actually do anything with the administration.
Yeah. I mean, that's really, again, like another way to think about it is, like the personnel, who's coming in and out of the party. I mean, basically, again, your deal over the past 5 years is for every one Paul Ryan you're losing, you're gaining 4 Marjorie Taylor Greens. And that's an awful deal. That's not sustainable.
And even when you get Hope Hicks or something like that, she didn't know anything. Yeah, I mean, think about like the other people inside Trump's White House. Why Scaramucci in the White House? He's in the White House because there are no experts inside of MAGAism. Like there's no one who knows anything. So like Scaramucci's there because he's there. Why is Seb Gorka, Dr. Sebastian Gorka? like why is this?
I mean, you could go through the list. Why is Scott Atlas there? I mean, all of these people that like that's not what your job is.
And it's emblematic. This is what I was always bitching about with the administrative state. It's emblematic of this lowering of the bar of expectations of like what administrators are inside of conservatism, MAGAism, and like. I'm sympathetic on some level. I don't necessarily love Tom Nichols, but I'm sympathetic in no small part to his thesis about this death of expertise thing. This whole like, I don't need you. You're an expert. I'm an expert. That thing's really dangerous. That has been a very, very dangerous development in our society.
Genuinely would target that as the single biggest long-term problem that we have as a society. If we don't solve that one, I don't see how we're going to survive in 100 years.
Honestly. And I thought that before we got into the pandemic, and everyone was like, "I'm not going to listen to doctors. You're a doctor. I'm a doctor." Wear a mask. Oh, Fauci got something wrong one day. I guess maybe I know just as much about Spanish flu or whatever as he does. What does he even know? That's dangerous, man. That's dangerous sauce. All right, so. That's kind of where I'm coming out with the Capitol riots. I think that it's been this interesting inflection point where if there was a chance to get away from Trump, that door's now closed. There was like a 2-week window where he was off Twitter. He was obviously doing bad stuff. Even some of like members of leadership like McConnell, etc., were saying things like Trump might actually maybe be responsible for some of this, maybe. Modest stuff here, but saying it. But now with the impeachment and what Rand Paul did, forcing the vote about like his impeachment, even now he's got them all kind of dragged in, and this is the weird genius. I don't like using the term genius with Trump, but like the cleverness of Trump's strategy or the efficacy of Trump's strategy. He creates, in poker terms, pot commitment. Everyone gets
Yeah.
invested in the pot, and they have to just keep going forward. They have to see the hand all the way down to the end. Even if you know the river card's gonna burn you and that you have like basically no chance of getting out, everyone's so pot committed that they have to pay to see the river card. For those of you who play Texas Hold'em, did that make sense to you at least?
I got you.
Okay, cool. All right. So now moving into the Senate, where the impeachment trial will happen. In addition to the impeachment trial, they're going to try to govern, a new thing. And one of the sticky wickets in terms of governing is going to be Joe Manchin. Sean, have you been following Joe Manchin's antics here since the Democrats won Georgia?
I have always got an eye on Joe.
Yeah. So what did you think when he decided that the first thing he was going to do the week of them winning the Georgia announcement, or winning Georgia, was announcing that he was not in favor of $2,000 checks?
I mean, it's amazing to see someone in his position that's also the senator from West Virginia. I mean, on paper, you see senator from West Virginia, kind of like forced between both parties in this kind of weird way. I mean, just on paper, that's about the most obvious move you could make in the world, which is like, yeah, like I'm on favor for $2,000 checks. Like I got a bunch of poor people in my state. They need this money. But then there's also the weird issues with public opinion. I don't know if he's seeing weird stuff from his state or if he's just so used to capitulating to Republicans that he's assuming that he has to right now. But, you know, like the public opinion I usually see on the stimulus checks is that clear bipartisan majorities, there could be something weird in West Virginia, although I would assume that in West Virginia, those bipartisan majorities were even more majority and bipartisan-y. But yeah, Joe Manchin, I think he has he is stuck on capitulation. I mean, he did
The
not
checks
have
thing,
to,
though, this is really interesting because I didn't really fully consider that. Like normally, yeah, he just capitulates to what the Republicans do, and he's got to do this wishy-washy waffle thing. But in the lead up to the Georgia election, all the Republicans were like, "We got to pass those $2,000 checks. We got to get people their money." So you had that rhetoric from the Republicans.
yeah.
The Democrats have been in favor of that. In coal country, where they've been getting whomped by everything, the idea of getting $2,000 to coal country, even on a state level, like the stimulative effect for his state's probably going to be really great off of this $2,000 check.
Yeah.
Rent's low in West Virginia.
Oh yeah,
which
purchasing power there is they've got it much better than the people.
Right.
Oh yeah.
At any number of things. So it's really kind of contra to everything of Joe Manchin for him to throw his neck out there on this. The best defense I had from someone who's kind of a Bidenist was like, well, he's just trying to get leverage. But to your point, this is a
I don't think it
really
does.
no.
I mean,
it's
that
a
was my
stupid place
first
to get
reaction.
leverage.
That was my first reaction is like, okay, he's trying to demonstrate that like anytime you decide to do anything and make a deal of any kind, I'm going to be here saying something. You got to check with me always. But this is something that if he succeeds in his bluff, his very poor state doesn't receive money they desperately need. I don't see the push.
If I was running against Joe Manchin, whether I'm a Democrat or Republican, because who knows which side he'll be on, I will be running on Joe Manchin kept you from getting the $2,000. If the checks, this is why it's really stupid. It's not guaranteed that the bill is going to pass. Like, it'd be one thing if Joe Manchin was just saying this and the bill was going to pass regardless, and he was just kind of saying it, kind of like what he did with Kavanaugh or whatever. But in this case, he's saying it can actually affect the outcome. So if Joe Manchin's the guy who keeps you from getting the $2,000 check, I also think on a national level, whoever runs against him will, one, have a nice head start on this because they'll be able to announce it like tomorrow. And two, will be fundraising like crazy off of this. So it was good that he was brought to heel quickly and quietly by the party, but that got my antenna up of like, oh, okay, it's going to be like this, Joe Manchin. This is how we're going to be doing it for the next
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be seeing a lot of Joe Manchin with the stuff that, I mean, obviously, just because the Senate is a 50-50 divide and every vote counts, you're going to be seeing Joe Manchin on every major vote. But I mean, I think this is a good time to remind people also that, like, in particular, this is someone that's going to really make it difficult for Biden to achieve anything outside of executive agreements and orders on climate change. He has every incentive to block anything the Democrats want to do on this, and he absolutely can. And I'm really interested in the dynamic of, like, ultimately where does this go? Joe Manchin, running for office in 2024, like what does this do to, this 4 years? How's his strategy? I mean, first there's the question of, is he going to retire? Is this going to be his last term? In which case that changes the strategies, completely from his perspective. Or is he going to try and run again? One question that I've been kind of considering in my mind, I can see this playing out where he's the person saying no. The Democrats are sick of, like, they're almost running into the problem of, like, they're seeming like they can't get anything done to the average person that doesn't pay attention and knows, like, oh, it's Manchin that's keeping all this stuff from happening. They're just going to think Democrats can't get anything done, like you always get. So at some point, it seems like the AOCs and maybe even some of the more, like, not moderate but left moderate of the party, it's going to start actually, like, challenging him openly, saying some more shit about him. And it could get to the point where I could actually see him using that as an opportunity to finally, if he wanted to stay in office for one more term, maybe do a flip.
Yeah. Okay. So to that point, you are already seeing Ossoff and Warnock putting pressure on the party. And to your point, they're moderate progressives. Both of them, they both have points in their policy positions that I would consider to be fairly moderate. And they have liberal positions on other things too. But they have already been pressuring the party on, hey, we ran on $2,000 checks. We need to pass $2,000 checks. And to this point, I think if you're looking at what the future of the party is it Joe Manchin or is it Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff? Which looks more like what the Democratic Party is. So, I think Elizabeth Warren partnering with the senators from Georgia. The senators from Georgia have a lot of leverage here. One, I think it's in Ossoff's interest to protect Warnock and get Warnock reelected. Two, I think both those two are stronger together than they are individually, and it's the parts being more than the individual. And three, I think that progressives looking for real meaningful leverage on the Senate level and go, Georgia's is the hub of what we are doing now as the Democratic Party. We are trying to win Georgia. Georgia is our state. We need to protect Georgia. And
frankly, I think you could say more or less the same thing about Arizona with Sinema and Kelly. I mean, it's a growth place, and it's a place where you've got a couple senators that, like, they are still nervous because Kelly just got in. Sinema, I think.
What is going on with her? I'm very confused by her.
Sinema is someone that, I mean, she made it really clear when she got elected that she was going to be running her seat as a moderate, and that she'd be willing to buck the party. I interpret. You look at Sinema's background, you look at how she is personally, and I don't actually myself see much evidence that who she is as a person is this kind of moderate to conservative. I just don't see. I
don't buy it. I like, especially if you go further back in her biography. I'm like, I do not believe that you have been converted to the Church of Establishment Centrism. I think you might be saying these words, but I don't
exactly. Yeah. I think, like, I think what she's doing, and I think, like, Manchin, we've known for. I mean, I just have such a hate relationship with Manchin. It's just so frustrating dealing with him. That Manchin's one thing, but Sinema, I think, is doing something kind of strategically smart here, and I think we're going to need to let her play it out a little bit, because it's in our long-term best interest to have two blue senators from Arizona. And I think that long-term, that's entirely possible. I think it's even probable if you play your cards right. But, like, Arizona, you're trying to get a fucking squirrel to come over with a nut right now. You can't make any, like, large sudden movements. And I think this is her thinking, is that basically she hasn't been reelected yet. So she doesn't have a very good sense of, am I going to, like, be one of those people that, like, just squeaks through or loses or something like that? Or am I going to be one of those people that spends 6 years worrying about it and then I end up getting reelected by, like, 5, 6+ points? I think that she doesn't want to remove herself from the possibility of multiple terms in her first term. But I also think that, if she gets reelected by a meaningful cushion that she can imagine consistently having, I think she starts opening the left side of her ideology up a lot more than she previously has. So I would be really careful about applying pressure to Sinema. I would let her do what she's doing.
Whereas the Manchin, I'm kind of at scorched earth because he's either with us, or he's against us, and we need to start weakening him now. Like it's actually kind of.
I mean, it's so tricky. You got to be really fucking careful because he knows, like, one flippy flip from him gives the Senate to the Republicans. Bam, just like that.
And Mitch McConnell could literally change the rules that day.
Yeah,
it changed.
And if you think
he will.
Yep, he will instantly. And if you think that, like, Mitch McConnell isn't in some Emperor Palpatine way every month, maybe over the next couple years, having a little meeting with Manchin or trying to send a message to him, like, he knows, like, his most likely way back into the Senate. And yeah, there's a really good chance that he can be able to claim that back in 2022, but it's also not the same kind of midterm, election that usually benefits the other party. It will, the Republicans probably have, like, the edge in 2022 just because of the pattern that we see. But the big problem that they face in the Senate is that they're mostly playing defense. And, they don't have a lot of seats plausibly that they can pick up. So if the Democrats can play defense in just a few nice places, the Republicans might not get to pick up in 2022 either for the Senate. And Mitch McConnell does not want to have to wait until 2024 to try and get the Senate back.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if the Democrats actually play hardball here, and it is too soon to tell what the congressional strategy is going to be or how the dynamics are going to play out. Initially, I thought we were going to kind of have a rerun. Before the election, I thought we were going to have a rerun of the Obama administration when he took over, and we were going to try to play nicey nice and have meetings and all that shit. 1-6 made that basically impossible, which I think is a wonderful thing in a lot of ways. I think it's great that
I agree.
Yeah, no, AOC is like, no, they were trying to fucking kill me. No, I'm not here for this.
I mean, I say this usually, and again, like, policy, whatever, but, like, in terms of her rhetoric, in terms of branding, in terms of getting what you have to do as a 21st century Democratic politician, AOC is, as far as I'm concerned, still batting nearly 1,000, in terms of just, like, she knows how to handle. Ted Cruz tried to, like, use her as an in that tweets that you're referencing, tried to use her as an in to sort of normalize his brand again by finding common bipartisan issues that they can deal with.
We're fighting on GameStop now. We're friends.
Yeah. And now, she just shut that shit down immediately. And that's the kind of thing that just, I see her making these moves, and I consistently don't see other Democrats doing things that, like, yeah, this is 21st century new school Democratic politics. And she has to, some other people have to follow her in playing this kind of game.
And you're seeing that. Nancy Pelosi saying that the enemy's coming from within when it comes to Marjorie Taylor Greene. Like, but that's from Nancy Pelosi. That is strong language. That's forceful shit
from Nancy.
Yeah, no, it really is. And I can see, like, look, they implemented the gun stuff. They're just aware that we can't just repeat the tactics of the Obama administration, which gives me some heart that maybe they're not going to get wiped out on the Senate side when it comes to doing the Senate races here in 2022. House is going to be tricky. Like, they lost redistricting in a major way here, so I expect some attrition there, and they might even lose.
It's tough.
And to your point, in terms of Emperor Palpatine conversations, I have been pushing. I'm interested to get your thoughts on this. I've been pushing for Democratic leadership to get on the horn with Mitt Romney and Lisa Murkowski and do a similar sort of thing of, like, Mitt, what the hell are you doing here, buddy? I mean, you guys.
Yeah.
Because Mormons have consistently, when it comes to polling on the Republican Party during the Trump era, have been very squishy and not crazy. Like, when you're looking at, like, who's not crazy about the Trump people, it's at 30%. A decent chunk of that 30% is the Mormon population who vote Republican but don't like this Trump stuff. If there was a way to make a Democratic permission structure for Mitt Romney, of all friggin' people, I actually think that could be very useful to the Democratic Party, and frankly, probably demographically wise, more useful to them than anything Joe Manchin has to offer.
I mean, that's
Mitt Romney offers you an inroad to, like, the religious community that you don't really have. like Democrats are like not the religion party, but like if they could be like not the religion party, but also like Mormons are cool with them because they hate the Republicans so much. That's something.
I mean, that would be an incredible get. That's a tough get. I think in a lot of ways the Murkowski get actually,
I think
could
it's
be
easier.
easier. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I mean, one, I think Alaska demographically it's easier to pick that up. Although let's not overstate that. That's an enormous challenge. But
Yeah, but it's a smaller state. I mean, population wise,
and she's someone that like she didn't get into office pointedly. She didn't get into office on the back of the Republican Party. She had a write-in campaign. She knows that she has her own independent base of power in the state, and that if like she says, "Screw you" to the Republican Party, she's won under those terms before. So I think you could maybe get her. And I also think she's, I mean, she seems disgusted. Mitt Romney also seems disgusted, but there's a little bit of just sighing and desperation that I see from Lisa Murkowski that I feel like she's maybe a little gettable, a little bit more gettable.
Or maybe you can get these two people to do the Angus King gimmick and flip independent.
Right. I mean, I think I would be happy if you could just get them.
That'd be huge. No, because then we get into voting for who's going to be the Senate Majority Leader and stuff like that. And so, like, when you're worried about the Manchin attrition, what you're really worried about with the Manchin attrition, it's not like, oh no, we're going to lose this wonderful man. This
exactly.
Guy. No, what we're worried about is losing committee chairs, and we're
exactly
Senate leadership. If you have independent Republican-ish, but independent people who can determine who's in control of the Senate majority, like Murkowski, Murkowski's shown that she can take votes against the Republicans and live to tell about it. When it comes to, in her case, I think she voted for impeachment and she voted against Kavanaugh. When you have stuff like that, I get, that gives the Democrats a real opportunity there, I think, constructively. I think they do need to start planning for post-Manchin options, because I don't think you can trust Manchin.
Yeah.
I think it's...
No, and I mean, I think I brought this up. I think I might have brought this up the last time, and I'll close, I guess, on this point, just kind of reiterating, I think I said before on this show, but I think one way that you sort of inure yourself to the Manchin problem and some of just like the general problems of the moderates that make up that thing that gets us over 50 in the party is seriously make a push for DC and PR. I really think that there's an opportunity here. I don't necessarily know it's successful, but I don't know that it does. I know that it won't hurt you. And I do think that you could use this as a wedge issue in a bunch of different ways. I mean, like the PR one, I think is a bit harder because of just the way people think of it, what is Puerto Rico. A lot of people still don't get it, but like there's more people in DC that don't have representation in the Senate than in the state of Wyoming. How in the absolute
or even Delaware, Delaware only has about 1 million people. I don't know how many people are in DC, but I think that's probably
DC is a little under. DC, I think is 750 or something like that. So it definitely exceeds Wyoming. I think it exceeds Montana. I mean, maybe a couple of other ones, but like this is absurd. This is ridiculous. You couldn't possibly justify this if you tried, and I don't know why the Democrats don't turn this into a battle and pick up 2 free senators.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right, and that also allows them to get out of their Manchin problem. One problem with that would be, this is where you'd want to have the deal brokered with like Murkowski, maybe like Alaska, that she be the natural fit here. You'd want to have some sort of deal brokered with Murkowski or Romney where they'd be votes for this. So that you wouldn't have to worry about Manchin going, well, I don't want to lose my power and leverage and my king-making ability. Yeah, no,
right.
Yeah, you're losing it, Joe. It's going away.
And I also think like I'm saying this out loud as just like I haven't thought this through, but I feel like there is some way to sell DCPR statehood stuff as an advantage to Manchin. Like there's a way to make, he's succeeded as a Democrat in the state for a really long time. And I don't think that it necessarily does him good to constantly, like he doesn't want to spend his entire life, the rest of his political career being kind of the odd man out in the party. I don't think he minds being it, but I don't think that's necessarily his preferred state of being. So if you, like say it to him is like, if we add these 2 extra senators or if we add these 4 extra senators, you get to say no all the goddamn time. You can say no whenever you want.
Or you can flip party like you want to, and then you get to be the kingmaker On the other, you'll have to change teams, but on the other
Exactly.
team, you'll get to be the kingmaker, and you will have this outsized say among the Republican
Exactly.
caucus,
I just
who are
think there's
more
a way to sell
simpatico to
this to
you.
him as some kind of golden parachute that like he could see as reasonable, and it wouldn't leave hard feelings necessarily between the parties. So, yeah, I would love to see them explore that. I have no idea if they have any intention of doing that. And I really just think if they're not doing something on DC, especially DC, but maybe PR too, they're just leaving the free money on the ground.
Yeah, no, I think those are the money moves for the Democratic Party and the way they kind of solve their Senate problem. Because they're never, I mean, as currently constructed, unless you do massive changes to the rules, you're just simply never going to have the Senate be particularly proportional to the actual Democratic electorate.
Exactly.
PR and DC statehood does something to address that problem.
Exactly.
It does. It's not enough actually, but it does
No.
something. Yeah, so I'm with you on that. The other thing would be like California breaking into 3 states. I think would be probably not the worst thing in the world, but
No.
less
Tougher,
viable,
but
tougher, less viable. But if you did that, and then you had DC and PR, and you had 110 senators, and they were all reliable D votes, that would actually even out your Senate. Anyways, that'll do it for this episode of Don't Worry About the Government. Sean Frieder, where can people find your work on the internet?
you can find me at my website, some academic work on there, seanfrieder.com, or follow me on Facebook. I'll add you.
As for me, you can find me on Twitter at DWATG. Support this show. Buck a show is all I ask. If you've been listening to this show since we started the Patreon in episode 300 and haven't subbed up yet, now's a great time to sub up. Go to patreon.com/DWATG and do that. Buck a show. You get the video version of the show. So if you want to see like when I was putting up the articles or the memes earlier in the show here, you can see all of them up on the video version of this. The audio version will, of course, always be free and post-produced for the masses. I want to thank you guys so much for listening. Thanks you so much, Sean, for coming on the show. Thank you all for supporting the show. And until the next one, bye-bye.